Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go!
So Assiniboia is host of the Weyburn Red Wings hockey games, and I do morning sports there on the hit radio, CKHD. And so I had already voiced my sports, and then I went to the gym, and I see this thing. Wow, SJHL, big news. So you could have given me a little bit of a heads up, Commish, that this was happening. But I'll tell you what, that is big news. Now, Notre Dame doesn't usually get big crowds out in Wilcox. There's not much of an atmosphere for games, even back when I used to call them with the Estevan Bruins. So I'm not overly shocked that way, but it is still shocking when a team that's produced the likes of Curtis Joseph, Rod Brindamore, Brad Richards, I think even Vincent Lecavalier played out there, even Patrick Waugh's son, and now the Notre Dame Hounds are moving to Warman. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a big shocker for sure, but I think probably, Michael, where it started was that Rob Palmerine retired as president of Notre Dame Collegiate. A new president and a new board came on, and this president, Dr. Charles Skipper, was charged with doing a full assessment of the current programming at Notre Dame Collegiate at Wilcox. And so they brought in a group and they started to do some assessment of the facility and the program. And I think they made some recommendations to the board, and the board and Dr. Skipper developed a new vision for Notre Dame. And I think what you're going to see, it's going to be more of a multi-sport academy with a focus on international students and residential students. And so really, as part of that vision, junior A hockey was really not part of the picture. So probably simultaneously, while that was occurring, we were approached probably about 11 months ago from a group led by Cole Catcher about the possibility of some SJHL expansion. We did discuss it at our AGM last June. There really wasn't much traction for expansion because I think there's a fear that by having too many teams will water down the talent pool in the league. And one of the things we enjoy about the league is the strong competitive balance and the parity in the league. And so really wasn't an appetite. And then Wade Klippenstein was hired as the director of hockey development at Notre Dame. When he came on, he invited me to a couple meetings, and I met with him and Dr. Skipper and kind of talked about, what was going on with the program in terms of attendance and performance and financially. And we carried on our conversations. And then they let me know that the board did have an appetite to sell the franchise and relocate it to another place. Some parties connected with the board of directors from Notre Dame. They entered into some agreements. They formed a memorandum of agreement and a transaction. We just kind of observed from the sidelines. So once that was kind of done, I took it to the Board of Governors and said, look, here's what's going on. It doesn't look like Notre Dame is going to continue to operate a junior A program beyond this season. So we're struck with a decision here. Either we have to go to an 11-team league, or we got to hear from this group that's interested in purchasing the franchise. And so we struck a committee inside our constitution. It's called the Forward Planning and Expansion Committee. And so that committee met with Mr. Catcher and Mr. Abermetz a number of times and put them kind of through some of the rigor and some of the things that we needed to have satisfied as a league. The committee made a recommendation to the governors, and the governors approved the relocation conditionally based on them meeting some milestones before our June AGM. One of the biggest milestones is they do have to get city council support in Warman because it's kind of came in the mid budget cycle. I guess the council and the mayor are trying to determine whether this is going to be something that they can facilitate and this is going to be something that's good for the community and good for the council. And so those conversations are going on right now. But for all intents and purposes, one of the historical franchises in the SJHL is going to be relocated for the 25-26 season.
That's kind of crazy. That's like I don't know. How would you draw an analogy to like an NHL team or even a Western Hockey League team to, maybe kind of fill the people in, paint a picture for them?
Well, I mean, obviously there's some serendipity involved here. I mean, independently, we had a group that wanted to move a franchise to Warman, and then we had another board of directors that wanted to discontinue player programming for junior A hockey. And so kind of fortuitous. Maybe it'd be similar to the Coyotes relocating to Utah. Really is what it would be like. Again, probably the group with Cole and John. I've got to know them here over the last 11 or 12 months. I think they're super professional. They're ethical. I think they're going to be positive additions to the SJHL. And I think Warman, we've gone there for years with our showcase, Ballsy. We've had really good feedback from the showcase. Our attendance has been very good. And every time I'm out in Warman, people always say, hey, when are we going to get an SJHL franchise in Warman? And so certainly lots of dots have been dotted and T's have been crossed. And Warman is one of the fastest growing communities in Saskatchewan. They have a very strong minor hockey and AAA program. Lots of boys and girls like hockey. It's a young population. I think they're ready for something bigger than AAA. And so I'm hoping that Cole and John are successful with City Council and that Warman, whatever they are, the Wildcats or Wolverines or whatever they decide the name is going to be, are going to be ready for puck drop on September 20th.
Oh, not the Warman Hounds. That name is done.
No, I think we're gonna sunset the Hounds, but what you're probably going to see from the league and from the college is we're going to start to acknowledge the history and pay some tribute to the Hounds teams of current team and the past and their history within the SJHL. Once kind of all the dust settles around this announcement and the season ticket drive that's going to go on in Warman.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And when you think about, like I mentioned, some of the names off the start of this interview, it is a historic franchise. There's no doubt about that. I actually would liken it to. I'm not dismissing what you said about Coyotes to Utah, but I think it actually would be more like the first Winnipeg Jets to Phoenix, the very first time. That's kind of how I would see. It's like it's a traditional franchise with some names. I wouldn't say it was a perennial powerhouse, but you had some names like Howard Chuck and things like that. Slaney, Newmanen, same type of thing. Notre Dame going somewhere else.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, like the board has a new vision for the program, and when you think about it, Ballsy, you have a junior A program. None of those kids attend school at Notre Dame, so they're really at an arm's length. It costs a lot of money to operate a junior A program as well. And so some of the resources that were used to fund that junior A program certainly could be used for more students or more residents than 20 kids that really have a very tenuous tie to the school. So, if you're a board member and you're a steward of resources and programming, you could see where they would make that big picture decision. For us that are in the hockey circles, certainly bittersweet because, the Hounds have been part of the SJHL for a very long time, and they have produced a lot of quality men and women through the program, and especially young men through the junior program, and they've always been a staple for the last 38 years in the league, and so bittersweet to see them go, but very optimistic about the future that Warman will have in the SJHL.
I was in the Warman rink just one time, briefly. How many does that rink seat?
Currently, it's probably around 1,800 currently. I know that there has been some discussion about expanding that at some point. They're in the middle of a big renovation right now. They're actually building onto the rink. And if you've been out there, like it's a multi-purpose facility. It's got meeting rooms, it's got gymnasiums, it's got volleyball courts and basketball courts and walking track. Like it's a beautiful facility.
Would it automatically become one of the top facilities in the SJHL when I'm thinking about it? Estevan's the Taj Mahal, but it would be right up there, wouldn't it?
It will be right up there for sure. Like Melville has a beautiful building. Estevan has a beautiful building. Melfort has a great junior hockey rink, which is, a little bit older, but it's great. Humboldt has a great rink. This Warman facility, it would be right up there. Like even when we went to Assiniboia, when Weyburn ran into the ice plant issues, like Assiniboia right away, that would have been in our top three. Like that was a beautiful rink. Notre Dame has really played a lot of neutral site games probably in the last 3 years to try to generate some interest around the program. Even when we went to Wynyard, like Wynyard is a beautiful rink as well. Yeah, so lots of great rinks out there, and Warman, the players and the coaches and the staff, they're going to have a first-class facility, and they're going to have a first-class player experience.
And no disrespect to Notre Dame, but when you said to me, "Hey, there's a lot of the kids playing there have no affiliation with the school," well, shit, there's nothing to do out there. Like there's literally nothing to do in Wilcox. At least if you're in Warman, you're right by Saskatoon. Like even that is more appealing. I'm not cutting down Wilcox and Notre Dame, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, and again, like once upon a time, like when you think about the traditional hockey factories in Canada, Notre Dame and St. Mike's Academy and St. Mary's Shattuck in the States, those would be probably the top 3 producing schools in probably North America. Well, now there's so many hockey academies throughout North America and throughout Canada that, again, you know what? I think once upon a time, I think that the leadership in Notre Dame thought they were going to specialize and become a hockey academy, but kids have so many choices. There's so many choices in hockey today, whether it's sanctioned or non-sanctioned or playing in a sanctioned AAA program or playing at an academy. So it's tough to be competitive because, again, if you've ever been to Wilcox, like we probably get more people in one of our SJHL arenas than they have in their entire community.
Yeah.
And so again, things change, vision, focuses, priorities change, and the priority has changed here. And, I always feel like I know the board was committed to really having a quality player experience, but, without telling too many tales out of school, I don't know if every 19 to 20-year-old on that roster today with Notre Dame is really having a great junior hockey experience living in a dorm in a small community. So to the board's credit, they identified they were concerned about programming and the player experience. And again, I think at the end of the day, we got a win-win-win. It's good for the college. They can use resources elsewhere. They can implement their new vision. It's good for the league, and it's great for the community of Warman.
Hey, lastly, what does it cost to run a franchise now? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, probably you're in the neighborhood of probably $800,000 to $1 million a year. And so again, when you're looking at funding that, like a piece of it is season tickets. So if you have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 season tickets, that's pretty good. If you have anywhere around $200,000 to $250,000 corporate sponsorship, that's pretty good. You probably need to have like an ag project, or you need to have a Jeremy Roenick night, or you need to have a golf tournament, or a progressive 50-50. So volunteers and some of the boards with these clubs really have to do a lot of fundraising to supplement both the season tickets and the sponsorship. So it costs a lot of money to operate a hockey team, and there are very few junior hockey teams probably in Canada that make a lot of money. And so again, the people involved love hockey, they're passionate about hockey, but it takes a lot of resources to create a good player experience.
Is it more for Flin Flon? Because they're like the furthest entity. Like they're a ways away out there. Is it more for them? Do they get any type of revenue? Like I don't want to say revenue sharing because you barely scratch. Do they get any type of subsidy or anything for being in the league?
Well, way back in the day, probably over 40 years ago, when they joined the league, I think that they were required to subsidize people's travel to Flin Flon.
Oh, wow.
And, because they had left the Manitoba League, they had nowhere to play. The SJHL accepted them with some conditions. But I think that somewhere along the line that disappeared. And so, they travel a great deal in order to play in what I believe is Canada's best junior A league. The other teams have to travel there as well. Notre Dame and probably L'Orange, we have to pay referee mileage and per diems when our referees travel to games. Probably 25% of that budget is dedicated to traveling to the northern communities in our league. So this move, although it's not immediately great for Estevan and Weyburn, but they've enjoyed having them as kind of in close proximity for 38 years. It's probably really good for the northern teams and the teams that are in the nutrient division, Kindersley, Battleford, and Humboldt. So we're talking about reducing probably 6 hotel nights for most of our teams already, which is kind of a savings. But again, that cost is going to probably be passed on a little bit to Weyburn and Estevan. But hopefully they can make it fly. But overall, I think adding a community like Warman, a facility like Warman, having the leadership group that we have with the folks that are going to be involved, it's going to be first class, and it's going to be a great player experience, and it's going to be awesome for the league.
Well, maybe that's why they already asked me for October 9th for the follow-up dinner. They were already asking me that I got to do that follow-up dinner on October 9th.
You're going to have to raise some more money, Ballsy.
Yeah, that's it. I better see you there too, my friend.
Oh, probably.
Hey, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks for your interest. Appreciate it.
Okay, just All right, Ben Grant, as we tape this, we're Canada's playing the US for the championship of the Four Nations hockey tournament. I was really like I've played hockey, my son's played hockey. I like hockey. It's my second sport, but football's my first sport, and more specifically CFL or three down football. And I was really lukewarm on this tournament because Russia, Czechia, I don't think it's a true best on best. But man, I've been intrigued by these Canada U.S. matchups for sure.
Yeah, exactly. With the extra political
Yeah.
climate and everything else, it's been pretty intense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, for All-Star weekends, this is blowing like the NBA out of the water or anything else we've watched.
Oh, no kidding. Like you look at what's happened. I actually like what the NFL has started doing with the Pro Bowl. I hated the last few years of the actual tackle games. It just seems so strange. But it's still not, it's not really an all-star game. And the NBA is weird. And so yeah, this I'll take this any day.
I didn't think you were as old as you were, so you are kind of in the same age bracket as me. You're doing real well. So I remember back when the defending Grey Cup champs played the CFL All-Star team in a game, like in an actual tackle football game. I think I remember when 87, it was Edmonton against CFL All-Stars. That might have been the last one they had. Should the CFL do some type of All-Star thing like the NFL, to expose the players more?
I don't know. I want it, but I don't know how to do it properly. That's the thing. And because I don't think the NFL's even figured that out. Like they're trying stuff, but I'm not sure that, I don't know if they've really got it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, in the CFL, you got far fewer players, obviously. I don't know if it would be done the right way. I don't know how it would look. So, back in the 80s, like you're talking about, those games were good, but it was a different time. It was a different era. Things have changed. Like the guys all with free agency and everything else, like everyone knows each other really well. There's a lot of friendships there. There used to be like absolute hatred between teams, and you get a little bit of that sometimes now, but it's not the same. So the climate's just not the same. I don't know if it would work.
The NFL floated the idea during Super Bowl week about a professional men's and women's flag football. I know there is some collegiate women's teams. U of R has one, for instance. Do you think there will be a time when, like we've already watched SFU go by the wayside, which is sad in terms of tackle football. Do you think we'll see a time when more universities go away from tackle football, which, by the way, I'm not an advocate of, but it is cheaper, less injuries, less players, less equipment, in favor of flag football?
It's heading in that direction. I don't know if we're going to see that in our lifetimes, where it's just completely flipped and tackle football is gone. I don't really see that, but it's huge. Like my daughter plays quarterback for Team Ontario U14. She's heading down to Florida for a tournament with 700 teams in it. You think about the scale of that, like 700 teams traveling to Florida to play in a tournament. Like you would never have thought that would be possible a few years back, and so. It's hard to say. Like that's certainly where the sport is heading, but I don't think we're going to lose tackle anytime soon.
So, and in terms of that, you talk about flag football, or I did, and you brought up about your daughter. Congratulations! But you look at it in Regina. Regina has one of the best NFL flag football leagues, youth flag football leagues in all of North America. In fact, I think it won the League of the Year at the last event in LA. Like they had an awards ceremony. So that just, when they started like 18 years ago, there were 75 kids, and now they're at about 3,200.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And there's good. I've seen some of those Saskatchewan teams are strong. There's some great athletes out that way and some really good flag programs.
Yeah, so you are a combine guy. You're very much into the scouting. I could actually see you as a scout one day, to be quite honest with you. But you're a guy that is into this. So are you coming out Regina way? And how do you like the combine? Like, what do you like about the combine, I guess? Not how do you like it. What do you like about it?
Yeah, I'll be there for sure. I guess a month away, a little less than a month away now, and yeah, I can't wait for it. Also, I love Regina. It's the most, to me. People laugh at me when I say that. I don't know why, but it is my favorite CFL city to visit, and I don't think anyone else ever says that. I really, truly, honestly, have loved every time I've gone there, and so I'm looking forward to go back. I haven't been there, and it's been at least a year and a half, I guess, anyway, and. The combine itself, I love how it's way more interactive than I think you get with the NFL combine, for example. They've had a lot more drills, a lot more like scrimmages and things where you can really evaluate properly. Like it helps you assess so much. And the structure of it, I think it's a little bit different this year. It looks like they're shortening it up by about a day of on-field time. I'm hoping that doesn't change the structure of it in terms of those scrimmages, because I found that extremely helpful in trying to gauge. Because it's one thing to look at a guy's 40, a bench press, vertical leap, like those are helpful. I like those numbers, and watching film is obviously huge, but actually seeing these guys take in coaching and then seeing them engage with each other on the field, like to me, that helped my assessment so much over the last couple of years since they've sort of switched to that format. So that's the thing I get the most out of from the combine. I'm hoping we get more and more of that. Although I understand there may be some pushback from players, from agents, because I get why. You don't want you don't want a non-contact injury or something like that. You don't want any sort of extra risk to your body. And so I get why players might not be as excited about that as scouts, general managers, but it is a great assessment event right now, the way it's structured.
Were there any names in particular that you're looking forward to watching? I've had Jackson Finley on this show, and also just finished up an interview, and as we talk, I haven't decided where I'm going to place it, but Nate Beauchemin, who was the President's Trophy winner from the UFC. Is there anybody in particular, or a few names you're maybe looking forward to here, Ben?
I don't know if I can pull anyone out specifically, but I always find it really interesting to see the guys that have been playing down south when they're matched up with the U Sports players, because that's something I do struggle with in my scouting, is trying to kind of calibrate the level of play that is going on, whether it's someone playing NAIA or someone playing all the way up to D1. It's really helpful for me to see them on the same field as the U Sports guys, because I know what that landscape is. I have a really good feel for U Sports. I can turn on film, watch a game, and feel very comfortable about the level that I know I'm watching. But some of these programs you're watching, like Bryant University, you're watching a lot of tape from Bryant a couple of years ago. I'm like, where's the level at? I don't really know. And so with those guys, it's extremely helpful. So I would say my answer would be any of the guys that have been playing American ball. Especially from the programs I don't know much about. I really look forward to seeing them and how they adjusted to the Canadian rules as well, because some of these guys, especially the guys who have played high school in the States and then gone right to university in the States, they haven't really had a chance to play with waggles, to play with this kind of field, to play with the yard off the ball. So those guys I find are always the ones I look forward to most.
So if you were a team in the CFL, you were part of the scouting brass or front office guy, would you spend a first round pick on Elgersma and Rourke, two quarterbacks that are highly touted?
Yes and yes, and I don't know if we'll actually see that or not. I think there's a lot that still has to happen between now and then. I think maybe that will make it a bit more clear, but I just think it's such a gamble right now anyway. Like, how many first-round draft picks have we seen over the last few years that aren't even playing football anymore? Guys that have, retired at 25, 26 years old, and then guys that you just never see again. There's just no sure thing, even in the first round of the draft. And to be able to take a chance on a guy that you feel pretty strongly about, and you look at the arm talent that Elgersma has and some of the highlights he has, and then seeing him play as well at the Senior Bowl and seeing him stack up against what we know is top-level talent, I absolutely think to get a Canadian in that position, for sure, you take a gamble on that. And Rourke is even, again, closer to a sure thing than you can usually get to, because he's got lineage. He's got his brother, who we all have come to know very well in watching the CFL, and so there's a little bit more question maybe about how quickly he'll end up in the CFL, if at all. But I just think it's worth a pick, because again, you would hate to pass on a guy like that and then suddenly see him, even if it's a couple years down the road, starting for another CFL team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see both of those guys go in the first round. If it's me right now on the clock, I'll take either one for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I'm interested to see what this Finley kid's like. He's comes highly touted. He's comes from great lineage. Grandfather, grandpa, dad, and uncle all have pro football background. I had him on the show. He's a great kid, medical student, all that type of stuff. And he's got that nice build too.
And guys like that, it's so interesting. Like you say, med student. I love that from a team perspective, from a coaching perspective. You love to have kids that are eager, willing to study, kids that are intelligent and can think on their feet. But then there's such a unique thing to Canadian football. Sometimes you have guys that are too academic, where the temptation to go into another line of work after a couple of years in the CFL is really great too. And I'm not saying that's the case with Finley, but that we've seen some players in the past where the opportunities that exist for them career-wise because of their academics are so tempting. So that's another factor that you never have to worry about in the NFL. You're worrying about your first round NFL draft pick deciding to go to work as a doctor, because they're going to make way more as an NFL player. But it does happen in the CFL. So just another little wrinkle, which is why this game is the hardest to scout in all of pro sports. Yeah,
I agree. Hunter, that is absolutely a great. That's absolutely a great point. And another thing that a lot of I've talked about it before. I can't remember if I've talked with you about it, but I know you've probably mentioned it. It certainly hasn't slipped past you with your football background. It's funny though, if you're drafting a Saskatchewan kid and you're in Ottawa or Hamilton or Toronto or Vancouver, you kind of got to maybe think twice, because you know what I mean? If you're a football player, you're going to play anywhere. But at the same time, it's like, hey, kid, how long are you going to commit to us? If we pick you, the first chance you get, are you going to pull the chute? You know what I mean? It's because you see a lot of teams kind of draft to the kids from the region, from the area.
Yeah, and that's something that gets talked about a fair amount. I know we've had a few, back-to-back centers that were drafted out of Calgary, and you're wondering when you get to that second contract. And I think there was a bit of surprise with Nick Castro when he re-upped with Toronto for his second go-round, because we just seen it happen before with McEwen, who went back close to home. And these players do. I don't blame them at all. You wanting to play close to friends and family, for sure, if you have that opportunity. So it is something that I think teams factor in, and whether it's we used to have those the regional picks and stuff like that. But I do think there's a temptation to draft players that are close to home, because that there's a greater likelihood that you'll be able to keep them around for a second contract.
Now, I want to be very clear about this. I think. I'm never against a player getting as much money as he can. Okay, but I got to ask you: are you shocked that the likes of Tyrell Ford and Robbie Smith, the guy you know well, got as much money as they did from the Edmonton football team?
I am 100% shocked. I love it for them. I'm really happy for them, especially Robbie Smith, just because I've got to know him a little bit. I coached against him as well when he was in high school. Gave me a heck of a time. Yeah. And, to see him get a great payday like that, I could not be happier for him. He's a great kid, and, he deserves everything coming his way. I'm surprised, though. I didn't expect to see that. And with Ford, because he's a corner, and I guess it's a little different because he's a Canadian corner, and that he really is a ratio breaker. I don't know if there's not another one in the league starting, certainly, and at that level there's not at all. So I get that you pay a premium for that, but I was surprised at the dollar amount. We're talking about tens of thousands more than the next highest paid corner. So great for them. I love it for them. I'm surprised. I'm even more surprised that it's from the same team. I kind of want to see Edmonton's books a little bit. Yeah. They've got $1 million on their defensive line right now. So we'll see how that all works out. They've got to sort that out by the time the season starts. But man, they're not afraid to spend. I love it. Good for Edmonton. Spend that money and let's see what they can put on the field.
So if you can win, and you can't buy championships, it's been proven in every league except for Major League Baseball, where the Dodgers have seemed to got that done. But who won free agency in your opinion?
You can't say I think anything other than the Elks. Like it's got to be the Elks. The number of move they took Toronto's whole defensive line. It was a really good unit. I got to see them up close over the last couple of years, and they're all in Edmonton now. Like that's on its own. And then you mentioned bringing in Ford as well. They're looking great at the quarterback spot with Fajardo there, with Ford there. They look really good on paper right now. But like you said, it is really tough. Like winning the offseason so rarely in any football results in you winning a championship. It just doesn't work like that. Like how many times have the Cleveland Browns won the offseason in the NFL, and everyone's going to, man, we'll look out for Cleveland, and then they have a 4-win season. In the CFL, it's so tough. Like you look at, I don't even know, like I was trying to do my own power rankings the other day and looking at the teams, and it's just so hard to tell until you see them play. And so Edmonton looks great on paper. I'm willing to crown them as off-season champs right now, but we'll see what actually happens when the heat turns on and we're back at it in June.
Now we can all make a case for one of the intriguing signings. I just had a guy on Ballsy Uncut here that is a very intriguing signing. If he still has the speed that he did when he left the CFL for the NFL, and that's Tavon Campbell, who could be a ratio breaker for the Riders. Your thoughts on that signing?
Yeah, I think like anytime, and again, it doesn't always work, and I don't know why. I don't have an answer for this, but some guys that have gone the NFL route and come back, and we get so excited about it, even if it's just a little stint. Like I didn't think like Matthew Betts, for example, looked quite the same when he got back after that short NFL run. He wasn't quite the same player he was when he left, and I think we'd say that about Nathan Rourke maybe as well to a degree. I don't know what it is when guys go down there and come back, they're not always able to shine the same way that we expect. So we'll have to see. But I'm all for finding a guy that is, as you said, a ratio breaker. It's such an underrated part of the CFL, like how you build your roster and where you have your Canadians. And I hate talking like this because I don't want to sound like I don't think Canadian players are any good. That's not what I'm saying. But we do tend to, you've got so many more Americans to choose from. There are certain positional groups that we struggle to populate and in terms of having national players there. And so if you can find a way at those certain positions that are usually taken up by Americans, it gives you some opportunities elsewhere. And so for Saskatchewan, I think they should be excited about that, but we still have to wait and see. Let's see what he looks like come game time.
I just had Matthew Betts on, and I asked him that question, and he didn't seem to be picking up what I was putting down. Not that he didn't catch on. I don't think he agreed with me, but here's my submission to what you just said. I think like just guys off the top of my head, Andy Fantus, Jordan Williams, Lambert. I'm just talking Rider guys here. Nathan Rourke, Matthew Betts, Henry Burris. You go there, you're going to the league, like you're in the league and then you're not in the league. And it's just a psychological letdown, I think. I don't think it's anything physical. I think it's a letdown. In Braden Lenius's case, he was cooking, he was doing well, and then he put on all that weight to be a tight end. He only lasted 4 days. And not only psychologically, but now you're in catch-up mode trying to get back in shape with guys that have already started their league. You know what I mean?
And I think you see it even with American players sometimes where they, like some of the guys that are playing D1 college ball, and they come up here and you're thinking, man, we got this kid from LSU. He's really going to be something. And he gets beat out by a guy from Wisconsin, Eau Claire or something like that. Because it's, the guy from Eau Claire is giving you everything he's got because he knows this is his last shot. And the guy from LSU, I don't mean to pick on that one school, but whatever it is, Power 5 school, is maybe thinking like, man, I wish I was in the NFL. And so he ends up losing out to a guy that wants it more. So you do see that. Maybe there's a little bit of that too. This sort of feeling a bit deflated. Maybe this isn't exactly what I was hoping would happen. And we've talked about this before, you and I. The difference between the CFL and the NFL, is this much. It's so small. All of the guys in the CFL are somewhere between practice roster players in the NFL and sort of mid to bottom of the lineup in the NFL. They didn't get a break. They were an inch too short, or their arms were an inch too short, something like that. And if you come up here, whether you're American or Canadian, and you don't give everything you've got, if you don't die out there trying, you're not going to make it, because it is too hard. There are too many guys that are too skilled that are going to beat you out.
Yeah, and I think that you raise a good point, and I agree with you, and I've said it too. But that's why this combine and this draft, you know, if athletes in the CFL had one more zero in their paycheck, they'd get way more legitimacy for the average sports fan. You and I get it, but he makes 40,000. Oh, he makes 400,000. Do you know what I mean? That's how people are wired. But where I'm going with this is this combine, this draft is a big deal for Canadian kids. This is their NFL.
Yeah, it's huge. Like, and it's forever. You know, it's one of those things, like, to be a CFL draft pick. It's for the rest of your life. You're like, I was drafted in this CFL. Like, that, what an amazing thing to say.
Yeah.
And it is such an accomplishment. And I think there are a lot of Canadians that get it, but I think the sort of, the average football fan, the guys that will choose to watch the NFL over the CFL, maybe they don't quite see what an amazing achievement it is. It's incredible. The level is. It is so, it's so hard to explain. Like, from having coached for years, I've seen great players who never even get a sniff, and guys that dominated in high school and even dominated to a degree in university, and they can't even get a look. They are amazing athletes, and yet it's not enough. The caliber we're talking about it's such a rare thing. And so, to be in the CFL draft, awesome.
So lastly, the other thing that's very interesting about this free agent carousel is the quarterbacking situation in Montreal and Edmonton. Like, it is pretty similar. Like, Davis Alexander doesn't quite have the resume or the eyeball test that we've seen from Trey Ford, okay? But then Trey Ford hasn't been consistent, maybe because of injury and because of coaching decisions. He hasn't consistently been there. So it's kind of similar. And then you got McLeod Bethel Thompson, a journeyman guy who got his team to the Grey Cup, got hurt, but still won the Grey Cup. And you got Cody Fajardo, who's been a journeyman guy and then had his defense played well, but had the game of his life, and they won the Grey Cup, and now they've flip-flopped. Like, what do you make? Who's got the better quarterbacking situation to start the season? Edmonton or Montreal, in your opinion?
Oh, I like Edmonton. I like their situation there, but I like Montreal's too. My fear with both situations is I know how tempted both OCs are going to be early in camp to be like, man, this, like, McLeod or Fajardo, like, man, these guys get my assist. They picked everything up right away. They look so smooth. They read the D, knew exactly where to go, because they're pros. Like, those guys they've been around for a long time. It is so tempting. You see it all the time. We saw it even last year in Edmonton with McLeod and Trey Ford. It makes so much sense just to go with the older guy, the vet. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the wrong move in both cases here, because you really need to see what the other guy can do and really give them a chance, especially Ford, because he has had it taken away from him, it seems like, time and time again. I hope this is the season that they just let him run with it, and he is the guy. And, run with him the whole season and see what you've got. But it's going to be hard. I don't know how that one's going to turn out. With Montreal, that's maybe even more extreme, because, as you said, like, Davis Alexander, like, how many games are we talking about? A handful of games. He's looked great in them, but it's not a big sample size. And McLeod's going to get in there and look like a pro from day one. So it'll be tempting there too. It's not a situation I like as a fan of those teams, as even a player on those teams. It's uncomfortable to me. I would rather have a clear number one, and these guys aren't ready yet. Like, that to me is so much easier for a coaching staff and for a fan base than when you've got a gifted veteran knocking on the door, still wanting to play.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And they say this a lot of times. Sometimes when you have two quarterbacks, you have none.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is, I guess the one thing is money talks, right? Ford got a big deal, and comparatively speaking, I guess Davis Alexander got the keys to the car too. There's a reason why they jettisoned Cody out, and he took a $200,000 pay cut to go to Edmonton.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they have invested in these guys. They feel good, and they've seen them play way more than we have. Well, especially in Montreal. Like that staff knows what Davis Alexander do way better than what we can assess in the limited games we've seen him at. They obviously love what they're seeing from him at practice, what they're seeing from him in the film room. He's clearly a guy they felt comfortable because they didn't have to do it this way, right? They weren't forced into this. They chose this. And so you have to think they feel way more comfortable than maybe the average fan and maybe, us in the media feel about that situation. And in Edmonton, maybe the new faces there are exactly what Ford needs to get a fair shot. But like I said, it's easy for us to say, but when you're a coach and your job is on the line and you've got a guy that has been there, has won a Grey Cup versus this guy that hasn't really had the time, it's easy for us to say. We'll see how they handle it.
So I think it's a coin. Lastly, I think it's a coin flip. Okay, I love talking football. We could talk forever, and I'll miss the rest of this hockey game. A coin flip to who the best coach in the CFL is. Right now, if I was ranking, I'd put Ryan Dinwiddie as the best coach in the CFL. He's been to the Grey Cup 2 out of his 4 years, playoff all 4 years, and won 2 Grey Cups with backup quarterbacks when he was an underdog. I don't think you can do. I don't think you can make a case for him being number 2. I personally think he's the best coach right now in the CFL, being the prisoner of the moment. Mike O'Shea's 2. Who's 3? Who's the 3rd best coach in the CFL right now, in your opinion, off the top of your head?
That's a good question, and I hate to. I actually. Because we haven't seen enough yet, but I feel really strongly about Corey Mace. I really like him as a head coach. I know the sample size is really small, and it didn't end in a Grey Cup, or it was a little short of I think what Saskatchewan felt like they could have done last year, and yet I think you can see him building something. And so I don't know if I don't think I have enough evidence there yet, but just having seen him in Toronto and knowing the kind of guy he is, and knowing the kind of coach he is, and what drives him. I see a little bit of that Dinwiddie spark in him, and I agree with you that Dinwiddie is the best coach in the CFL, and I think you're 1, 2, or I don't think you can argue with those. But I really do feel like he's right there, and so I'm biased maybe, but I would give it to Mace, even though we've got such a small sample size, and there are great coaches all around the rest of the league. We're at a really good place right now.
Yeah, we
in terms
are.
of head coaches in the CFL.
Yeah. I probably would lean Jason Moss, but Corey Mace is right there. Like, he's right. He is right there. You're right. But I want to see one more year. I want to see how it goes this year, and then I'll be able to definitely put a stamp on it. And then Milanovic is a good coach. I want to see how he does this year, though. Like, I think he needed to go through that first year in Hamilton there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And with like Coach Moss, for example, too, I love him as a coach. Yeah. I think he's a great head coach. But the thing is, with a lot of the other guys, like with Mace aside, and Dinwiddie and O'Shea aside, take those 3 guys out, though. Everyone else has been up and down and all over. They've had terrible seasons. They've had great seasons. They've been chased out of town. They've been, welcomed back in somewhere else. It's such a hard business to assess, to look at a head coach, and unless you win every year, it's really tough, because we've seen guys that are at the absolute peak, and then 2 years later they're fired and nobody wants them. And so, it's tough to say, but yeah, Moss, when he's got the players, he's got a quarterback, and he's got the defense playing for him too. You can't argue him.
Color commentator for the Argos and the X's and Argos podcast. By the way, how's your health? Everything good?
Everything's good. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that.
Awesome, man. You've been busy in the off season doing dad stuff, doing family stuff. So thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of that hockey game.
I will, and we'll have to get together next month in Regina. Let's do it.
I'm going to be there, buddy. I'm taking the days off because I've got a vested interest. So, yeah, I'll take you out for supper, buddy.
Perfect. We can talk some more football.
Nate Beauchemin of the Calgary Dinos, one of the hot prospects going into the CFL Combine. How does that sound when I say that?
That sounds good. I like the ring it has to it.
Yeah, and you're also the reigning President's Trophy winner for U Sports Football. Just what went right for you? What went right for you this season?
Well, you know what? It all comes down to the coaches and the players around me. I was put in the best positions to succeed, and I just did my job and made the plays that were there.
Yeah, and describe for the people that didn't watch Dinos football what kind of player you are.
Well, I mean, this is obviously biased. It's my own opinion of myself. I like to think of myself as the leader out there, the guy that, brings guys up if they make a bad play, there to give a high five, a helping hand up, but at the same time, set the tone and let guys know that, when you're on the field, it's time to work and there's no giving up. There's no quit. We go all the way.
Yeah, that's what my son would say. He played with you this year. He's a good judge of character. So he said you're a pretty good dude and a good guy to play with. You're pretty physical. Would you say that's your strength, your physicality, or what would you say?
You know what? I think my strength is the mental side of my game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not scared to make a hit or put the body on the line. It's just part of the job, really. But I think my ability to understand offenses, understand where my help is on defense and the other aspects of it, I think that is what really allows me to shine.
One of the games that really was remarkable was that game in Edmonton against the Golden Bears. There were three pick sixes in that game. They had one,
Yep.
You guys had two, right? Did you have both of them?
We also had three.
Yeah, you had three. That's right.
Gideon mixed one in there in the middle.
And you had two, two in that game. Was that the best game you've ever had in your life?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely up there. There was Sask at home 2 seasons ago, which would have been a close second. I actually had 2 pick sixes in that one. One of them got called back on a fair call, but a crappy play by my teammate, unfortunately. But you know what, you live and you learn. But yeah, I think U of A takes the cake for the best game of my career, really.
What's it like when you run one back like that, and then you look around, and you see a hanky on the field?
You know what? It feels good. It's like, I got that one. Play keeps going, game keeps going, but you know what? It feels really good.
Yeah,
it feels really good.
What's better, a pick six or lighting somebody up over the middle?
Oh, a pick six. I got to go with the pick six because that's really a game changing play, right? Like that massively swings the odds in your favor. Mm-hmm. But laying a hit over the middle and watching them kind of just lay there, there's lots of things that make me happy with football. So
in that game, I love it. You had 2 pick sixes, and my son lit up that one Alberta receiver over the middle there. So that was pretty cool.
It's a good duo.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, it seemed like you guys were a pretty good duo, and you're both in the combine. How are you spending your off season here in terms of training? Who are you training with? What are you focusing on?
I'm training with Eli Buka and David Swagger. Mm-hmm. 2 of the finest. I know that they've trained lots of athletes to go to the combine and or pros that are already in the league. So, there's really not anyone else that I'd rather be training with. Mm. Both great guys. So super happy with that. And you know what, the biggest thing for me this offseason is just staying dialed mostly off out of the training room, really. I love training. It's just what I love to do. So, the big thing is making sure your diet's right. You're putting your phone down at the proper time, getting your sleep, all of it. Those are the big focuses.
Have you always been like that, or you're just kind of getting into that now, like tightening it up?
I've definitely tightened it up for sure. I mean, I think there's always room for improvement. Mm-hmm. But I do like to think that I've been pretty dialed in for the last however many years. Mm-hmm. But it's all kind of come to life where I'm able to see, the end goal here, not the end goal, but the next goal. Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely tightened up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just getting ready.
So when you get on a field, nobody asks you how much you bench pressed. You'll probably never run a 40 again. Okay. But of the ones that you're going to do, which is the one you think you're strongest at right now? I mean,
probably bench. I actually received an email with all of the numbers from last year's combine out of the DB position. And you know what? I'm super happy with where I'm at. I wouldn't ask for much more. looking like top three numbers in pretty much everything. 40 is for sure my weak point, but I think I make up for that with the mental side of the game.
Okay, and you talked about the mental side of the game. How much of the mental side of the game factors in when you're making an interception for a pick six? Is it a bit of that? Is it a bit of that and a bit of luck, or is it more the preparation?
Well, there's definitely some luck involved, right? I mean, there's 6 eligible players on the field to receive the ball, so obviously the ball's got to find you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can break down, especially that second pick at U of A. I know that 85, he only ran in breakers, and so they went 23 set, lots of room over the middle. I knew they needed the first down, so it's like I'm getting ready to jump a quick route, and so as soon as the QB looks there, I'm gone. The first one was a bit of a miscommunication between me and your boy, actually.
Yeah.
It was a man call, and I should have called him over, but didn't. One thing led to another. I thought I was covering 2 guys at least, and made the QB choose the wrong one, which I wanted him to. So
yeah,
mental side takes the cake. It's the majority of the game.
You know, it's funny you say that. My son, we were talking about that when he goes, he goes, I don't know what happened, but one of us or both of us fucked up, he said, and it ended up turning out. So when you fuck up, but it turns out going the right way. So
it works out, you forget the mistake.
That's pretty funny. Is there a bond for guys like you, Gideon, my son Ethan Ball, when you're going into the same process here now?
Absolutely.
Like the combine?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously your boys is not training with us, but I can speak on Gideon especially. I think we've gotten a lot closer. You know, we have each other's backs. We're really looking out for one another. There's no competition as far as like who wants to go higher, who goes where, all of that. That's my guy. I want what's best for him, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help him out.
Well, you were a top 20 prospect going into this thing, so I'm sure that won't fall. But like you said, it really doesn't matter in the CFL because we're not talking about millions of dollars if you fall in a round, right?
Yeah, I mean it's more of a pride and ego booster, I guess. Really, I mean there's not much else to say on what round you go in. It's going to be what it is. You just gotta perform.
When did you know you wanted to be a pro football player? Was it a little guy? Was it partway through college or what?
It's a bit of an interesting question because I remember my first year, like coming in out of high school where I was one of the guys to playing special teams. It's like, man, I want to do more. Like something's not right here. Football's not the same. And had a talk with Trent Schmouland, longtime family friend, one of my mentors. And for me, football has always been I just want to be the best. The best I can be, and I know the best that I can bring is good, is enough, will make things happen. And so then really the realization that pro football was a very realistic end goal was really 2 seasons ago. Like I said, the goal has always been to be the best, but the actual realization that pro football is an opportunity was probably after that SAS game at home 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. Okay. Has any of the teams reached out to you? Has your agent been in contact with anybody? Do you have an agent? I don't even know.
No. Actually, I don't have an agent. That's been a whole foreign topic to me. I'm not totally sure if I need one really. I'm kind of juggling that question in my head right now. But no teams have been in contact with me, but I do know that teams have been in contact with my coaches.
Okay.
So there's definitely a couple teams out there that I know of.
Any preference? Do you care where you play?
I mean, at the end of the day, no, I don't care. I would absolutely love to play for Calgary or Vancouver, being those are kind of my 2 hometowns, but you know what? It's there's no choice on my end, right? So
yeah.
whatever team I go to, they're going to get my best.
So they joke that DBs are just receivers that can't catch. Now I can speak from my own because I taught my kid how to be a receiver because that's what I was, and he was decent in college. So I know he can catch. Although it's funny, he has never had a college interception. He had a chance in that Alberta game on the sidelines and dropped it, and he was mad because he doesn't drop those. Whereas you have pick sixes left, left and right. Have you always been a defensive guy, or have you been an offensive guy and make a switch?
I mean, I was actually a quarterback in high school.
Okay.
Not by choice, more just because I was kind of the best guy for the job. Mm-hmm. But I knew that wasn't my spot. It was probably, I think it was like 2015, 2016, Team BC, where they're like you're a good athlete, but we don't want you at quarterback. I'm like, throw me wherever. And then that's where the whole DB thing started for me. And you know what? I've always been in love with defense more than I have offense. So obviously I was ecstatic to be able to play that.
Well, and my son says it's a lot harder. You got to be a better athlete to be a defensive back because you're going backwards and you don't know where the guy's going, right?
Exactly. You know, you got to do what their best athletes do, going backwards, and you got to react to everything. So
I'm going to say what I said. I'm going to say what I said to him. You're nuts. You guys are nuts because the game, both in America and in Canada, is geared towards offense. Like, it's almost impossible to play defense now.
It very much is, you know, but that's what makes it fun. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge for sure. Okay, so lastly, you're sitting in a room with me. I'm the GM, the president, whatever. You're going to get asked this. Why should I spend a first, a second, a third round pick on you? Because I don't think you'll make it past the third. You'll probably be a second round pick. Why should I spend such high draft capital on you, Nate Beauchemin?
You know what? I think that would be the best investment you made. I will give you everything that I have. You know, it's whatever team I go to, that's my home. I bring athleticism, physicality, mental abilities, high football IQ, leadership. You know what? I think I got the full package, and you will not be disappointed.
Hey, and speaking of full package now, I'd know this if I was a GM. I just watch you. I know, running around there. 22, right? Number 22, am I right?
Yep.
Yeah, 22. Yep. How tall are you? What are your dimensions right now?
6'1.5".
Yeah.
I'm a little bit on the heavier side right now, weighing in at 205.
Yeah. My son's about 6'1", just a shade under. You look a little bit. You look taller. So maybe
give myself the half inch there.
Yeah, I think that's like Ethan. He's got a big wingspan, so he looks taller maybe than he is. Do you get into all those measurements, wingspan, or like I get a kick out of when they measure the quarterback hands. It's like that kid from, is it Milrow from Alabama? It's like if the guy, no offense, excuse the language, but if the guy can fucking throw the ball, he can throw the ball. Like, come on.
I mean, he's got. I saw that number. Tiny hands.
Yeah,
I didn't know that would be possible for a grown man playing football. But I agree with you. If you can ball, you can ball. Yeah. I don't care about those. I don't care about those numbers.
Who cares, man? Hey, I can't wait to see you in my hometown of Regina when you come in here for the combine, man. Looking forward to seeing what you can do. Meet you in person.
Coming soon.
All right,
I'm super excited for it, man.
All right, can't wait to see you. Thanks for your time.
Of course, thank you.